Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2020, round 3 of the season. A new venue this weekend, Budapest, Hungary. And what a two opening rounds it was in Austria. But this weekend the drivers finally will have a chance to explore a new circuit, potentially playing to the strengths of the Red Bull and not the Mercedes. So far this season we have raced at the Austrian Grand Prix and the STYRIAN Grand Prix. This weekend is the next of back-to-back Grand Prix before two British Grand Prix, a Spanish, Belgian and Italian Grand Prix, and added last week a Tuscan Grand Prix at Mugello, and the Russian Grand Prix will return this season on the 27th of September. Last season here at the Hungaroring, Max Verstappen claimed his first ever Formula 1 pole position, followed by Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. But come race day, Hamilton and Mercedes put on a stroke of strategic genius, taking the victory on the closing laps over the Flying Dutchman. Bottas struggled in the race, leading Sebastian Vettel to a big surprise podium considering Ferrari's pace around the Hungaroring last season. Last time out at the Styrian Grand Prix, Hamilton, mighty in wet conditions, qualified on pole position by 1.2 seconds over Max Verstappen, and it was Carlos Sainz Jr. in third place, claiming his best ever qualifying results. Hamilton though, come race day, once again, sublime victory for the British driver, his first of the year. Bottas made it a Mercedes 1-2, with Max Verstappen rounding off the podium. And as such, your standings look like this. Bottas with a win and second place leads the driver's standings 43 points. Hamilton now hot on his heels with 37. Lando Norris from McLaren with that fastest lap and podium from the opening weekend holds on to that third place on 26 points. Leclerc, Perez, Verstappen, Sainz, Albon, Gasly and Stroll round out your top 10. Your bottom half looks like this, with both Renaults on 4 points, 11th and 12th. Giovinazzi, Kvyat and Vettel are your final points finishers. Latifi, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Grosjean and Russell all yet to score. And as a result, your team's championship looks like this. Mercedes comfortably leading the way, but it's McLaren, bit of a surprise, in second place. Red Bull on 27 points, Racing Point on 22. Ferrari, only 1 point last time out, sit down in 5th on 19 points. Renault, AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo all score. Williams and Haas yet to do so. Formula 2 Championship looks like this, with Robert Schwartzman and Christian Lundgaard not only leading the driver's standings, but also the rookie standings. Eilok, Tipton and Armstrong round out the top 5. 6 of the top 10 are rookies. Moving on to this weekend, tyre choices is the exact same as the last two. C2s for the hard, C3 for the medium, C4 for the soft. And the majority of drivers going with 1 hard, 1 medium and 4 or 5 C4 soft compounds. So looks like a lot of the teams aiming for a one-stop strategy this weekend. And before we jump into the hot lap, your weather for this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. Oh my goodness me, it's looking good folks. Thunderstorms expected all weekend. A little bit rainy on Saturday as well. 55% chance of rain on Friday, 60 on Saturday, 59 on Sunday. Fingers crossed, a bit of changeable conditions. Hungary is usually known for it, and hopefully we can have a very spicy weekend indeed. Right, shall we crack on with the show? It's time for our hot lap on the Hungarian Grand Prix circuit. Welcome everyone to your hot lap for the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix here at the Hungaroring. 70 laps, 4.3 kilometres, should be an absolute blast. On board with George Russell down towards turn 1, a tight right-hander, very tricky in the opening stages, and perhaps the best place for overtaking along with turn 2. Between turns 1 and 2, DRS are open, but you want to keep tight to that inside apex for turn 2, but not too close to get a nice exit for the nice sweeping right-hander of turn 3. Up the hill, another potential opportunities for overtake before a very quick left-hander, and then heading up to turn 5 again, just missing that inside curbing, careful not to spin, getting a nice apex on the exit of the corner, and a lovely chicane at turns 6 and 7 rounds off sector 1. Sector 2, very tight, very narrow, overtaking opportunities very, very limited, but in wet conditions with lots of outside curbings can be very, very tricky for the drivers. Ending off Sector 2 and onto Sector 3, Sergio Perez had a mighty crash here a few years back, rounding off the final few corners now at this very short lap here at the Hungaroring, potentially a couple final more overtaking spots here through turn 13 and the final corner now, turn 14, and that pretty much is your lap here at the Hungaroring, and hopefully we see an absolute banger this weekend. Moving on to the newsroom, plenty of stories in the world of Formula 1 this week, most of them involving Renault. But we'll start off with the big story that broke last weekend just after I launched the preview, the announcement that Mugello would finally host a Formula 1 Grand Prix. The circuit synonymous in MotoGP, tested back in 2012 for Formula 1 in the mid-season test, but will now make its full Grand Prix debut in 2020 after the Italian Grand Prix. Looks tricky to overtake, but should be a lot of fun and a brand new challenge for the driver that potentially could throw some brand new variables our way. I, for one, am very much looking forward to it. With this announcement, we also have the announcement the Russian Grand Prix would too be returning in 2020. Renault, after the disappointing weekend in Austria and Styria, have decided to protest against the racing point car, which they believe is in breach of FIA regulations for potentially stealing their designs from Mercedes. Racing Point are more than clear and more than open to the fact they have copied the Mercedes from last season, but have also said they have not taken any documents illegally from Mercedes. No news just yet on the outcome of this, but I don't think it'll be too harsh for Racing Point, and I think Renault will come away a little bit disappointed. And a double whammy for Renault, no further action on the Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll incidents from the end of the Styrian Grand Prix. If you remember, Stroll overcooked it slightly going up the hill at turn 3, locked up, went wide, took Ricciardo with him and still claimed the position. This doesn't sound like news, however this does set a big precedent for the 2020 season, so keep your eye this weekend where there could be a few late lunges and moves over the course of the race weekend, and they will have to think back to last weekend and that incident before dishing out penalties. And that is it for your newsroom. Not a lot to talk about this week. Of course, 1 week gaps between Grand Prix, it's always going to be difficult, but Formula 1 have done a very good job of keeping the newsroom nice and topped up over the last few weeks. Shall we move on then to my favourite part of the weekend, my predictions for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And as always, I'd love to know your thoughts following our grid at the end of this prediction section. And the top rated 2 comments will be featured in tomorrow's video. This weekend, I have spiced it up slightly. I have gone with a Max Verstappen pole position with Lewis Hamilton second and Valtteri Bottas third. Wet conditions on a Saturday and potentially Sunday. I think it's always going to be a toss-up between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, but this time round with the bogey on his back from last weekend, I've just given it to Max Verstappen. Also did a mighty job here last season, well, both of them did really, and in the race, also in wet conditions and changeable conditions, once again, I've gone with a Max Verstappen victory, so his first of the season, making it 3 different winners in 3 different races. I've gone with a Hamilton second and Valtteri Bottas rounding off the podium, Alex Albon fourth, and I've gone with a very risky strategy, my best of the rest in the midfield, Sebastian Vettel. Goodness me, does he need a good result. 1 point so far for the 4-time world champion. And again, if you want to be featured in tomorrow's video, here is your grid to follow. Qualifying predictions, pole position, front row, and your biggest shock from any of the 3 sessions. And the race, of course, the fun begins there. Winner, podium, first retirement, driver of the day, and who will be best of the rest, which we're kind of counting as 5th place now, which is very, very strange. But I tell you what, that midfield is so close, and I, for one, am not going to complain. Before we go, Fantasy League time. Almost 3,000 of you now in the league, and finally last weekend, I scored some points. I'm up to 242 now, putting me in 2,152nd place, and as such, we've had to make a few changes this weekend. Grosjean, of course, stays in the Grosjean army. Lance Stroll replaces George Russell, and my team is now Mercedes. this looks good on paper. Hopefully it delivers in the results. And as always, if you would like to join the Fantasy League and you've not yet done so, the code is on screen and it's also in the description. And if you want to see your schedule for this weekend, screenshot time now if you're on mobile devices. Timings are the exact same as last weekend. Practice 1 and Practice 2, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock on Friday, followed by Formula 2 qualifying in the evening. Saturday we've got Formula 1 practice in the morning, Formula 1 qualifying at 2 o'clock, followed by the feature race, our first proper race of the weekend. And Sunday, sprint race at 10 past 10 in the morning, and the Grand Prix, the main event, 10 past 2 in the afternoon. And that is your lot for the preview for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Let me know your predictions grid in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoy this weekend. Subscribe if you are new, if you want to keep up to date with the practice sessions tomorrow, qualifying and the race. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.